The following program is classified M. It contains some violence and adult themes. Channel 10 recommends viewing by mature audiences.
He loves his kids beyond comprehension. Family's always first. Absolutely.
So why was Paul Nation missing on Father's Day? 2 weeks gone, now an urgent plea.
You mean the absolute world to us. We want you home.
The special report from Terry Dalton. A man, a bicycle, and a string of armed hold-ups.
He's calm, he's in control, and in and out very quickly.
Police think this man may be able to help them solve the case of the bicycle bandit. And Xanthe Mallett on the trail of a sexual predator.
We're certainly convinced that there is a level of planning that has gone on his part.
That's tonight on Wanted.
Hello and welcome to Wanted. 5 weeks ago, Wanted viewers helped find missing teenager Bethany Neville. Now another family needs your help.
While many of us celebrated Father's Day yesterday, spare a thought for Paul Nation's wife and 3 children. They spent the day alone and distraught.
13 days ago, Paul kissed his wife Claire goodbye and left for work. He hasn't been seen since. Nick Way investigates.
Paul Nation is a super fit father of 3.
Loves his sport, loves his cycling and surfing. For him, that was a good release, a stress release, and it's just what he loved.
A proud dad to 5-year-old Cash, 12-year-old Tyler, and Brittany, who's 15.
You know, he loves his kids beyond comprehension, and you know what we have's great. And he loves me so much. He wants the best for me and his kids. The best thing about him is that he just loves to see you smile.
Tuesday morning a fortnight ago. It seems like a normal day in the Nation household. At 6 a.m, Paul kisses his wife Claire goodbye and goes to work at a local building site. By all accounts, Paul put in a regular working day. He and his business partner came out to this building site mid-afternoon, and when it came time to say goodbye, he said, "See you tomorrow." Nothing unusual. But that was the last confirmed sighting of him.
He never just didn't come home. He just never does that. He's never done that before. You know, out of his character, just to not call or to not message and say, this is what I'm doing.
By 9 o'clock that night, Paul still isn't answering his phone.
I sort of had to drive around. I thought he might have caught up with a few boys for a few drinks. So I sort of checked the local pub sort of car park, see if his car was there.
But there's no sign of his distinctive 4-wheel drive. And by later that evening, his phone isn't ringing out, it's switched off.
Wednesday morning, Claire rang me and says, "Have you heard from Paul?" And I said, "No." So why? She says, "He just didn't come home last night." And the heart sinks straight away. Why? You know, we come through here, we looked at all his surfboards, his bikes, his wetsuits. There's just no indication that he's going to pick up something and just go away.
I was confused. I was trying to figure out what was going on. There's always pressures within life, family life, home, you know, work life. You know, there was nothing that I can say that could explain why he just wouldn't come home.
The day after Paul disappears, Claire files a missing persons report. Paul's last mobile phone signals on the night he went missing are traced to a suburb near his house and later to a timbered area north of the city.
Yes, we do have information to suggest he was in the Woodvale area and also possibly in the Pinjar area as well.
The following Saturday, nearly 100 people come together to search at his last known whereabouts at Pinjar, 40 k's north of Perth.
I think there was about 35 cars, family and friends, people that I haven't seen for 20 years came to help out. People that didn't even know him came to help out with the search. Sadly, didn't turn anything up, but it still gives us hope that sort of he is out there.
Paul's popularity sparks record views on the WA Police Facebook missing persons appeal.
At this stage, this particular post that was published last week has already reached about 250,000 people, which is really positive.
As news of his disappearance spreads, one of Paul's mates, Garth Chapman, flies in from Singapore to help.
Would you mind taking that and perhaps displaying it? And we'd be grateful for any information.
No problem.
Thanks very much.
I suppose the challenge, because we don't know what's happened to him, you know, maybe it's not in his mind, and we just don't know. I mean, has he had an accident? Has something sinister happened? Has he just gone rogue? I mean, we just don't know. We just can't process it.
We're just sort of speaking to people and just maybe the hope that maybe someone might have seen him.
Knowing that those friends and myself are here for him, you know, may help him make the right decision.
There have been numerous sightings of a black four-wheel drive like Paul's here in the city and as far out as the Kalgoorlie goldfields. But he hasn't touched any of his bank accounts since that Tuesday. We do know, though, that he had a full tank of fuel, and that would have taken him about 750 k's, and that he usually carried around $200 cash in the vehicle.
It's a distinct vehicle in that it's got some signage on the rear window for Paul's business. So obviously that makes it quite unique. But we're really asking the public to come forward with any information at all about Paul if they sight him or the vehicle.
Anything that I hear, confirmed or unconfirmed, it all gives me hope because that's all I have.
What's your worst fear?
Well, just that he won't come home. That I have to tell that to my children. And then just see their faces. That's what I can't think about right now.
Now, nearly 2 weeks since Paul disappeared, his phone still goes straight to voice message.
Hi, this is Paul from TP Formwork. I'm unavailable at the moment. Please leave a message.
I can't ring anymore.
Paul, if you're out there and you're listening to this, your family needs you, we need you, we all love you and support you.
Look, there's no pressure, just a call, just something to let us know or an indication that you're okay.
Paul, we need you to come home. You mean the absolute world to us. And we want you home. We just want you home.
Wanted correspondent Nick Wade joins us now from Crime Stoppers WA headquarters. And Nick, Paul Nation's family is really praying for a big response from Wanted viewers tonight. This is a tough one, isn't it?
Indeed it is, Sandra. And yes, they were hoping, and they're hoping beyond hope. They were hoping that he would turn up, make a call on Father's Day yesterday, that very special day his wife was waiting there, his 3 little children. But as we know, that just didn't happen. And in fact, his own father is flying in from the UK tomorrow to join the search. Now, police believe that Paul Nation is still probably within Western Australia, but there is also a possibility that he's heading to Brisbane because he's got a very, very close friend, a friend who's been a friend of his since in his teenage years, and they share this very, very strong passion for sport and cycling. So this really is a national call. If any of the viewers tonight or in the ensuing days see that very, very distinctive black Mitsubishi Triton 4-wheel drive, it's got a push bar on the front with big spotlights and that very distinctive number plates with the surrounds, rideoz.com and for serious cyclists. If you see anything like that, report it into Crime Stoppers or police immediately because it could provide a vital clue and help relieve this family's heartache.
Yes, Nick, let's hope there's a terrific response on that story. On another story, though, police there are tracking a new lead into the mysterious disappearance of a family that we highlighted on Wanted a few weeks ago.
Yes, Sandra, this concerns the case of that doomsday cult leader, Simon Cadwell, from this tiny little town in the southwest forests of Western Australia. Now, he went missing in 2007 along with his partner Xanthe, their daughter, 6-year-old Leela, and a friend, Tony Poppich. Now, Crime Stoppers has had dozens and dozens of calls Australia-wide about this case since we ran it early last month. And I can tell you tonight that they've had a credible call. They've had many credible calls, but one particularly credible call from New South Wales. Now, police and WA police are working in with New South Wales detectives on this one. They're now examining and trying to track down the bona fides of this call. This caller said that a person, some people matching the description of Xanthe and Leela are somewhere in New South Wales. They can't tell us the exact location for security reasons, but this could provide incredible hope to the families of those missing who've been waiting now more than 6.5 years.
Let's hope they are significant developments. Nick Way reporting there. Thank you.
Thank you.
And here's proof your calls to Crime Stoppers make a real difference. There's now been a 7th arrest on Operation Rome, the campaign to hunt down 20 of Australia's most wanted people. Tahara Hedaraka had been on the run for 2 years. He's accused of breaching bail over the alleged aggravated robbery of a taxi driver in the Northern Territory. He was arrested in Adelaide and extradited to Darwin, where he'll face court again in October. But police are still appealing for information on 2 of the most wanted men in Australia. Graham Potter is wanted over alleged conspiracy to murder and also drugs charges. He was last seen in Tully in Queensland in 2010. Now, he's used a number of aliases and sometimes stayed in caravan parks while on the run. There are suspicions he could now be in the Riverina. Any information that leads to his arrest could earn a $100,000 award. And Michael Tillman, there's an arrest warrant out for him over an attempted murder charge on the Gold Coast 3 years ago. Police believe he may now be living in New South Wales. Sandra?
Now, both these men are extremely dangerous and police advise not to approach them. And remember, you can report crime anonymously. Coming up, we need your help on a number of new cases, including the hunt for a brazen sex predator in Adelaide. And who stabbed this defenceless 73-year-old?
She's complied with every demand that he's made, and then when he gets her to the bottom of the stairs, he stabbed her in the neck.
But next, the bicycle bandit, armed, elusive and wanted for 5 armed hold-ups.
He's quite calm, he's in control, he is brazen, no doubt about it.
Thanks for joining us on Wanted, where police are again appealing for your help. They've asked for assistance identifying an armed gunman wanted over a series of bank hold-ups across Sydney. But what's most unusual about this case is the gunman's method of escape. Former Detective Superintendent Terry Dalton investigates.
Riding through the suburbs on an everyday bike, but this is no everyday cyclist. Instead, he's been dubbed the push bike bandit and is wanted for 5 pedal-powered bank robberies in 2011.
He arrives on 2 wheels and keeps himself covered. He's cool, calm and collected. But once inside, the bike riding bandit isn't playing any games.
Armed with a pistol and his trusty bike, 3 violent hold-ups were committed across Sydney between May and June. St Ives, St Leonard's and Edgecliff. Each time he followed the same MO, the same bike, the same gun. No shots were fired and sometimes the robbery failed. But each time the target was a Westpac bank. Detective Superintendent Luke Moore is the head of the New South Wales robbery squad. 2 years after this suspect rode away, Operation Ready is still in pursuit.
Why do you think he's using a push bike?
One theory is that in these busy shopping centres, it's easier access. He can get up right to the doors of the bank on the push bike, get away quicker than he can on foot. And I suppose to some extent it's not something that people would be expecting for an armed robber to turn up on a push bike. So it's an element of surprise. He's quite calm, he's in control, he doesn't use more violence than he needs to, although it is very violent. And he's in and out very quickly. He is brazen, no doubt about it.
At the first armed hold-up in St Ives, he makes an effort to hide his identity. Police have since recovered this hat and scarf, and they've been tested for DNA.
Through a variety of forensic examinations, we know that the same offender has committed all of those armed robberies.
A day after the third hold-up, critical evidence is found a suburb away.
After those first 3 armed robberies, or after the third one at Edgecliff, the following day we recovered a bike in a backyard of a house in nearby Paddington, and we've identified that as being the bike that was used on those first 3 armed robberies.
Was there anything unique about the bike that was recovered?
Once we recovered that bike and we started doing some investigations into that, we found that it was a Jamis brand, Jamis brand push bike. The push bike was originally a sky blue, dark blue colour, but somebody has actually ground the paintwork off the frame, and it's been brought back to bare metal. And somebody has wound electrical tape around various parts of the frame. I would say that anybody who has seen this bike would recognise the bike, because there is no other like it in terms of what the frame looks like.
With key forensic evidence in the hands of Operation Ready, the offences stopped. Yet 4 months later, on November 11, the pushbike bandit reappears on a new red bike. This time, he's at Bondi Junction, taking great care with his wheels. When he casually jumps the queue, a woman intervenes. With pistol drawn, the suspect and customers all flee. In the chaos, no cash is taken. What happens next is different to the first round of hold-ups. This time he rides to another bank some 13 kilometres away.
Do you think it's possible that he's ridden the bike from one location to the other?
Well, we've certainly been on the bike before and after Bondi Junction and before and after 5 Dock. It was about an hour and a half. Now it's physically possible that he's actually ridden the bike from Bondi Junction to 5 Dock. We know that he didn't use the trains. So he's either got there on the bike or some other means, but it is possible.
By 2:20 p.m, the pushbike bandit has pedalled across town to here in 5 Dock. He's wearing the same clothes, he's riding the same bike, and he's about to rob the same bank.
Pushing his new red bike inside the 5 Dock branch, this time he's more successful. He gets away with a substantial amount of cash. As in Bondi Junction earlier that day, the man is wearing a white baseball cap, blue denim jeans, a blue shirt, and covers his face with a white handkerchief. He was last seen riding away down Great North Road.
This was the last stop on his cycling crime spree. And whilst he may have rolled away with the cash, he left something behind, his image.
I know that there are people out there who would know this person, who will look at that footage, and they will know who that person is. And they will be able to identify him. Now, obviously, all of us have families. If it was your family who was involved in any of these armed robberies, and they're terrifying offences, if it was your family, you would want that person brought to justice, and that's what I would appeal to anybody who may know this person to contact us on Crime Stoppers.
Police believe the person seen here on CCTV can help with their investigation.
And here are some more images of the man police want to talk to over those hold-ups. There's also an extra incentive for anyone with information about this case. The Bankers Association's offering up a reward of up to $50,000 for any leads that result in a conviction. Contact Crime Stoppers if you can help. Sandra?
Thank you, Matt. Coming up next on Wanted, can you help track down a sex predator? Wanted over attacks on at least 2 women.
And our police investigation won't stop until we identify who this person is, where they are, and we bring them before the courts in answer to these crimes.
Welcome back. Now to the hunt for a sexual predator responsible for at least 2 assaults in Adelaide last year, both in very public places. Whether he's still in South Australia or on the run interstate, police need your help hunting him down. Our forensic scientist, Dr. Xanthe Mallett, investigates.
O'Connell Street, North Adelaide, a popular night spot. It's Thursday, the 6th of September last year. A woman walks along Gover Street after a night out. It's just after midnight. Suddenly, a man steps out, exposes himself, and makes a sexual comment. She tries to get past, but is grabbed and thrown to the ground. The 23-year-old is then sexually assaulted on the footpath. Despite his brutality, the man helps the terrified woman to her feet and tells her to go home. He then calmly walks away.
During the day, this is just a normal, quiet suburban street. Families living their lives, people coming and going. It really could be anywhere. But there must be a reason why this predator chose here to lay in wait.
Detective Superintendent Damien Powell leads the investigation.
The young woman didn't scream out. In many cases, people who are sexually assaulted don't scream. At that point, you can only imagine the only thing they're thinking about second by second, minute to minute, is surviving.
2 months later, the attacker is preparing to strike again, just 1 kilometre away.
You can't get more eye-catching than St Peter's Cathedral. It's one of Adelaide's majestic historic buildings and a very public place right here on the main road. There are always people around.
It's Friday, the 23rd of November, about 2 a.m. A 21-year-old walks along King William Road and turns left into Pennington Terrace, past the cathedral.
When she got to about this location here, she noticed that there was a man sitting close to these steps on the wall. She continued to walk past him, and she'd only gone past him a couple of steps when she felt him grab her.
The woman is dragged into the church grounds. She fights back.
When they got to roughly about where the tree is just up the path, she managed to break free, ran back down to the footpath and ran away.
Police have released this image of the man.
We're certainly convinced that there is a level of planning that has gone on his part. But what seems to be more evident as the investigation goes on is that they know the area very well. It could be that they have lived in the area, that they still live in the area. They may work in the area or have worked in the area for some time to know it.
How did you link the two assaults?
The two offences have been linked through DNA that has been found at both scenes, in both cases, and it comes to the same man.
Can you describe the value of DNA in cases like this?
It doesn't matter where you go, what you do, or how you change your appearance, your DNA signature will not change. You can run from the police, but you can never get away from the fact that it's your DNA.
Sergeant Sue Locke has spent 25 years working with the survivors of sexual assault.
The victim is not to blame for the assault. The perpetrator is 100% responsible. And unfortunately, there's myths and misconceptions which commonly blame the victim.
What are some of those myths?
There's myths that where the person didn't scream or fight back, then it's not a sexual assault. That's totally incorrect. There's also the myth that the victim must have asked to be sexually assaulted because of the way they were dressing. No one asked to be sexually assaulted.
Since the two attacks, the man has gone to ground. The woman described the man as Caucasian, with olive skin and a husky voice.
Is there anything about sex offenders that makes them stand out from the general population that can help identify them?
Absolutely not. They come from all walks of life, and they could very well be the person who lives next door to you. There's nothing that would distinguish a sexual predator from any other member of the community. And our police investigation won't stop until we identify who this person is, where they are, and we bring them before the courts in answer to these crimes.
As you just saw, this is the image of the man Adelaide detectives want to speak with over the sexual assault. However, they have now released 2 new images of the man to wanted. They've been altered to show him with more hair. So, if you recognise him or have any information that may help police, please call Crime Stoppers. And Sydney Police still need your help finding this man. He's wanted over sexual assault on women in the Manly and Ashfield areas.
Well, now to a special appeal from Western Australian police who need assistance locating 2 sex offenders. The 2 men are on the run and could now be anywhere in Australia. This is 33-year-old Jason Pennington and this is Craig Stock. He's 32. Both were convicted of sex charges involving a child over the age of 13 and under 16. Now, they failed to attend a scheduled appointment with police and have been missing since May this year. The WA Police Minister granted investigators special permission for Wanted to broadcast the names and faces of these 2 men as a one-off measure. If you see Jason Pennington or Craig Stock or have any information on their whereabouts, please call Crime Stoppers. Stay with us on Wanted. After the break, the hunt for a cowardly criminal who robbed a 73-year-old grandmother of her cash and cards, then stabbed her in the throat.
I lost a lot of blood. I just thinking about for help. I not get it help, I'm be dead.
Welcome back to Wanted. Well, few crimes are more cowardly than assaults on the elderly. And this one in Melbourne has left seasoned police especially outraged. 73-year-old Ilona was robbed of her cash and cards. Then she was stabbed in the throat. Now, Ilona doesn't want her full identity revealed. So we're appealing to the public to help find her attacker.
I lost a lot of blood. I thinking I'm in the rampage room in hot water. That is not hot water, that I light in my own blood.
Although her wounds are healing, Ilona still carries the emotional scars of a brutal attack in her home just 3 months ago.
The 73-year-old woman has been rushed to the Dandenong Hospital in a serious condition, life-threatening injuries which she sustained as a result of what appears to be a home invasion.
On May the 21st, the grandmother, who lives alone, hears a knock at the door. Detective Senior Constable David Shannon explains what happened next.
As she's opened the door, she's seen the knife in his hand, and he's kicked the door in, has struck her on the face, and has knocked her to the ground in the hallway. At which point, he's ran over to her, he's put his knee on her chest, he's held the knife to her chin.
Ilona gives him all her cash and hands over her credit card, even writing down her PIN number.
He said, "Don't you lying old bitch, if he's not write his PIN number, because I 2 days later come back and I cut you throat."
At knife point, he rips off her medical alarm and forces her to the lower level.
She was very nervous and very afraid at that stage. So down she's come. She's complied with every demand that he's made, and then when he gets her to the bottom of the stairs, he stabbed her in the neck.
Ilona blacks out and the intruder flees.
It's almost beyond belief. I can't understand why anyone would do that.
The widow wakes, confused, thinking she feels hot water on her back.
I was thinking, that is not a hot water, that is my blood.
We've had professional cleaners in, and there are quite large stains of blood where there were large pools of blood from the day.
Blinded by her injuries and badly bleeding, Ilona crawls up the stairs, reaches her alarm and calls for help.
I just thinking about for help. I not get that help, I'm be dead.
As help arrives just after 4 p.m, police believe Ilona's attacker is already using her card at an ATM on the corner of Lonsdale and Clough Streets, Dandenong. Here is an image of the suspect police hope someone will recognise. Investigators would also like to speak to this man. Besides Ilona, he may be the only person who had a good look at the suspect.
If you know who he is, you've got to come forward. This is horrible. This is a horrible act. Any person that's done this needs to be punished for it. If they do it to this lady, they could do it to anybody. You've got to come forward. You've got to give us some information.
Ilona still suffers pain from the attack. But what hurts most is she can no longer feel safe in the home she's lived in for 43 years. She has since moved out.
Because that is not be fair for one crook put me out for my own house, myself, my husband, my children, and just take it away for 1 minute everything.
And while it was, of course, extremely traumatic for Ilona to relive that experience, she is determined that her attacker be brought to justice and, more importantly, prevented from repeating another vicious assault. So if you have any information that may help, you know who to call, and you can do so anonymously. Now to our very own ex-cop, Terry Dalton, and more crimes caught on camera. Terry?
Thanks, Matt. Our Rogues Gallery tonight begins in Adelaide. This robbery's at a Salisbury IGA store in the city's northern suburbs on August 19. The suspect is described as Caucasian and unshaven. He's wearing a blue and white striped jacket. He's also got a red bandana under his blue beanie. He demands cash and threatens a shop attendant with a knife. He casually clears the till of all the cash and briefly talks to the employee before walking out. He was last seen riding off on a black mountain bike down Bagstar Road. Now, do you recognise these two blokes? Detectives believe they may be able to help them over the armed robbery of a woman in the Sydney suburb of Roseville. The 50-year-old was struck in the head and stomach and threatened with a firearm before the men ran off with her handbag. This vision was captured at nearby Linfield train station, where the two men hopped onto a train for the city. It's not just the cops' job to keep our streets safe. If you have any information on any of those crimes, if you recognise anyone involved, you know the drill.
And that number, of course, is 1800 333 000, or you can report crime online. When we return, Dr. Xanthe Mallett and new clues in the hunt for the hit-and-run driver who killed a man more than 20 years ago.
We now have a DNA profile of the persons that we're interested in. This is going to be resolved, not really if, it's a matter of when.
Last week, we featured a special investigation into the cowards who kill, hit-and-run drivers who leave their victims for dead. We highlighted the case of 34-year-old John Stambolis, a pedestrian run down and killed by a driver in a stolen car more than 20 years ago. Now, finally, a breakthrough. Our forensic scientist, Dr. Xanthe Mallett, continues her investigation into how police are closing in on the killer.
On a Saturday night, 24 years ago in the Melbourne suburb of Preston, John Stambolis was walking along this street after an evening drinking with a mate. As dramatised in this Crime Stoppers video, these were the last steps he took. John was struck with such violent force, one of his shoes was flung 55 metres from where his body was found.
From our perspective, that shows high speed, sort of around the 90 to 93 kilometres an hour.
With a stolen car, they're not going to stop because I left him for dead.
More than 2 decades later, the crime still haunts John's father.
So, John was the youngest of 3?
Yeah. I don't know. I miss him. But what can you do? That's life.
But the investigation is far from over. The stolen statesman that struck John was abandoned streets away from the scene of the crime. Witnesses reported seeing 2 men inside, and both of them may have left evidence that now, 24 years later, could help track them down. Blood.
So it's quite possible that the driver or the passenger has received an injury as a result of the collision that caused the death in this particular instance.
At the time, the blood was brought to this building.
DNA profiling was in its infancy back then. It was expensive, it was complicated, and it needed a large sample of blood. So the blood from the statesman was only analysed for typing purposes. But as unsolved fatal cases are never closed, the samples were never thrown away.
A few months ago, investigators took a fresh look at John's case. They decided the blood found in the statesman should be DNA profiled for the first time.
This is all completely sterile, isn't it? Because it's really important that we don't add any of our DNA or extraneous DNA to this.
That's correct, yes. So it's just a matter of taking a small sample of the stain and adding it to a tube like this.
So this goes off to the lab.
That's correct.
How long does it take to get a full profile if we were going to try and obtain it from this little sample?
It could take us up to maybe 24 hours before we could obtain a DNA profile, as little as 12 hours, but yeah, usually about 24 hours we can get a DNA profile from that.
And that's what you can talk about in court and show people. It's one of those little charts showing what your profile looks like, all the different alleles, etc.
That's correct, yes.
The DNA profile is then entered into a national database, joining more than 700,000 others taken from crime scenes, suspects and convicted criminals.
So what does it take to obtain a full DNA profile? It could be a tiny drop of saliva from a cup. It could be a bead of sweat where somebody has touched a wall. It could be a drop of blood, a single hair. So it's actually very difficult for criminals to not leave their biological signature at a crime scene.
And that means the elusive driver or passenger of the statesman that hit John may be only one step away from arrest.
If the offender's DNA is ever retrieved for another reason, they will be caught.
Exactly right, and that's it's a national database, so they get arrested for shoplifting over in Perth tomorrow. They get profiled, we'll find out about it and we'll be coming to talk to them. This is going to be resolved, not really if, it's a matter of when.
Well, Xanthe joins us now. Xanthe, how big does a DNA sample have to be?
Well, 24 years ago, originally when the hit and run happened, we would have needed several drops of blood to obtain a full profile. Nowadays, with technological advance, it can be 8 to 10 skin cells. And to put that in context, even from my lipstick on this glass, you could obtain enough skin cells to produce a full profile.
Everyone's pretty familiar with DNA science these days through shows like NCIS. But does everyone have an absolutely unique DNA? Because, for example, I'm a twin, so would I be an exception?
Are you an identical twin?
No.
OK, so an identical twin is one egg and one sperm that are split. Fraternal twins, for example, it's two separate eggs that have been separately will grow and have separate DNA.
OK. In the John Stombolis case, though, we don't know who that profile belongs to, do we?
No, a full DNA profile has been obtained, but it has not come up on the DNA database, so we still don't know. But it's important to say that even if somebody thinks that they may know somebody's involved, 24 years ago they may have passed on by now, but with familial DNA you can take what's called a buccal swab, so a cheek swab using something like that, and we can do a profile to determine if that person was potentially involved.
Let's hope there's some resolution on this case soon. Thanks, Xanthe.
After the break, the bottle shop bandit wanted over 7 armed hold-ups.
This is Wanted, and we need your help again to track down a dangerous criminal. WA detectives are after a man over a series of armed robberies in Perth. He's hit 7 bottle shops across the city's northern suburbs between November last year and February this year. Staff were threatened with a knife on each occasion. Here the bandit demands money from staff and others in the shop before escaping on foot. In one hold-up, he drives off in a small red car. Now, he conceals his identity with a beanie or a shirt and can be seen here wearing dishwashing gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints.
And that Crime Stoppers number is on your screen, and you can also report online. You can remain anonymous. There's also our website, which has information on all of tonight's stories, plus all the cases we've featured over the last 9 weeks. And you can also follow us on Twitter at WantedTVHQ or join the conversation. #WantedTV.
Now, recapping on how you can help tonight. Do you know where Paul Nation is? Paul's been missing from his Perth home for almost 2 weeks. His wife Claire and his 3 children are desperate to hear from him. These are images of a man police want to talk with over a series of sexual assaults on at least 2 women in Adelaide. Do you recognise him? And what about this man? Sydney detectives believe he may be able to help them in their inquiries into 5 armed bank hold-ups where a bicycle was used in the getaways. Here's another man police want to talk with after a 73-year-old Melbourne woman was robbed of her cash and cards and then stabbed in the throat.
Next week on Wanted, the brutal attack that almost ended the life of 30-year-old David Borthwick. A savage bashing by 2 men, King hit and left for dead.
I'd never seen him before, never had any altercations.
Thought at one time that he had died. He just sort of, everything went still. His eyes were open and he wasn't moving.
Now that's just one of the cases you could help solve next Monday at 8:30. We hope you can join us for that and much more.
Until then, on behalf of the whole team, have a good night.
And remember, evidence is everywhere.
So if you see something, say something.